Have you ever wondered what the ocean can teach us about life, about design, or about making bold decisions? Vittorio grew up with the sea. At just 4 years old, he took out his first boat alone. Today, he's designing some of the most beautiful yachts in the world. But it's not just about boats. It's about philosophy, about creativity, and about bridging worlds.
Everyone that comes back from a sailing trip for the first time is moved, emotionally moved, in a good way or a bad way. They never go back, or they want to go around the world, or whatever it is. They're moved because it's a very strong and, in a way, crude and bare way to face nature. I feel like I am bridging the architecture world universe full of unicorns with the engineering world full of rational grey days and sad truths. It's challenging from every angle, and I enjoy all of them. I think good design is what serves the purpose for as many people as possible, looks beautiful for as many people as possible, and stands the test of time. Being myself in my own body has taught me to be very present to myself in the moment, because it shows you these very far horizons, very endless possibilities of traveling. It taught me to live the moment as well, because one day sunshine, the next day is stormy, rainy, and both moments can have their own beauty in it.
I don't want to let you wait any longer, so without further ado, let's jump right into the episode with Vittorio.
Yeah, but at the beginning I was like, no, I don't want to learn Spanish right now. I just want to get on with my life, and I want to develop my experience in this country. And then, just as you said, I realized how important that was to actually deeply bond with my surroundings. And at the time when I moved to Mallorca, which was my first time moving to Spain, as in I never lived in Spain before, I realized even more that the local community was sort of hard to access if you weren't unlocking a good Spanish, you know. And obviously there is also the Catalan dialect, which is the Balearic accent or dialect, and the Mallorquin dialect, which were even more hard to, you know, get into and penetrate. But yeah, long story short, I decided to learn from friends in the streets, in the nights out, you know, meeting new people and learning new friends, and the desire to get to know these people better, Spanish-speaking people better, got me to become more interested in learning Spanish. And eventually I studied a little bit of grammar, and they told me I speak really well. So I take that and ran away. I ran with it.
That's a compliment, I guess, if someone from the country tells you you're speaking good.
Yeah.
You're good. But how is it for you? In my experience, often if people go to a different country, move countries, they accumulate people around them that are also maybe even from the same country as you are, and then the circle is still you're still in your bubble and not really mixed with the culture. How has that been for you?
That is very, very true. People from same country tend to, you know, get closer and create groups abroad, and this is, I think, a very classical behavior everywhere in the world. But I think I approached this situation differently, because it wasn't my first experience abroad. I've been living in England. First time I left Italy, I went to England to study, and I ended up in a very international community. I had people from many different countries in Europe, and a lot of people from Asia, and some from South America. And I learned immediately the importance of being multicultural, and realized how different all the different backgrounds were, how interesting it was to see them all applied towards the same goal, which was eventually getting this master science finished and with good grades, and go off to do whatever we all wanted to do, which was also very different from one to the other. Then after England, I moved to Holland and to Amsterdam, which was probably the most multicultural and inclusive place I've ever lived and visited. And even there, I had a group of friends, not study related. We weren't forced to be in the same room, and we just, you know, picked people from everywhere in the world. We had all sorts of nationalities, And that was another very enriching experience in terms of learning new cultures and learning how important it is to integrate them in some, enjoyment and common free time and entertainment. So when I arrived to Spain, I was very much set on, I'm not really looking to creating my own Italian group. Somehow happened because, these things are inevitable in a way, but I also blended that in very much. And my wife has an Italian background, but she's from all over the world, basically. So I think we do a good job in mixing type and nationalities of friends, and we enjoy that very much.
I mean, at the end, it's not about that. It's about, do you feel comfortable at home, whatever it is. And then it doesn't really matter. But the people matter, so it doesn't really matter if they're from Spain, if they're from Italy, if they're from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
At least you're feeling, somehow at home and at ease in some sense. It's interesting to me, you already tapped into it a little bit, your let's say, stations in life. In the last episode, I talked to Carmen, and she's from Barcelona. And I had this thought, do you know the Spotify Wrapped thing? Like when you listen to Spotify and the new year approaches and they suggest, here is your year 2024 wrapped. And I was thinking, okay, this would be a good question to ask, like, if you had to tell me your, like, Vittorio's life wrapped in like some short period of time, what would you tell me? Like, who is Vittorio and how did he come to be the one he is right now?
Yes, I will need to make an effort to keep it short and summarized. I might get lost myself, so please help me. But anyway,
Please get lost, no worries.
I was born in Naples, in Italy. My family has always been connected to the ocean and the sea, and I've been enjoying that in many ways since I was very young, very little. I was a very active child. I jumped on a small sailing boat on my own when I was 4.5 years old. And then my grandparents uh, gifted me a small boat when I was 5.5 or so. And we would take it to the summer house, which is on one of the islands in the Bay of Naples. And basically I would spend my summers, yeah, scrolling around the coast and with sometimes my family following me on another boat where we would go on another bay, just anchor and then do sailing and swimming and all these sort of summer activities, which rooted the water, the sea life in my personality very much. Having the opportunity to grow up in a city like Naples, I was sort of attracted to some sailing clubs, and I started my sailing career. I was racing a lot as a kid in youth races, but also more like throughout high school and university. And then I realized that beside the sport and the racing and the medals and victories one could have, and you could also turn this into a bit more of a profession. And I got close to, I skippered some charters during the summer to pay for my university in Naples. And of course, my choice for studying ended up being marine engineering. Marine because I couldn't think of doing anything else unrelated to the sea, and engineering because I had a very mathematical and physical mind. My mom used to be a physics teacher, so I kind of I got fascinated by and passionate about physics throughout my high school studies. And my father is a marine engineer as well, so I kind of saw some sort of light in that direction. And I studied a full bachelor and master degree of engineering in Naples, in a university that has a very classic approach with a lot of theoretical studies and a lot of formulas and handwriting and face-to-face exams and things like this. And then by the end of it, I realized that I studied a lot about ships and cargoes and commercial shipping, but what I really wanted to learn and to know and discover more about was sailing yacht design, or yacht design in general. So I went on to the University of Southampton in England to take a Master of Science, in yacht design, naval architecture in general. And that marked in my educational career and then professional career later on, marked a turning point for sure, because it just opened up my mind towards many directions. First, the life as an expat, then the technical content of the master and the engineering side of things that I had experienced from a theoretical point of view. Whereas, as we all know, the English method is a lot more about application and practical skills and developing tools to solve everyday problem. So I got really projected into what really could be my my chair as yacht designer somewhere in some offices. And I learned a lot about aerodynamics, which was something I always dreamed about and didn't really have enough schooling of. And, you know, as sailor, there's a lot of romanticism about the aerodynamics and the sails and the wind and the flow of the wind and all this kind of aspects. And then from there, I went back to Naples and I started my search for the first employment. And I got a job in Holland in a world famous yacht design studio, specializing in vintage and classic looking yachts. And that was a extremely positive experience from all aspects, because it was again projecting myself into the expat environment in a different way. So with my own independence now, not as a student, but as a as a proper professional working abroad. I landed in Amsterdam, which is, as I said, one of the most inclusive cities I've ever lived in. Excuse me. And I was extremely passionate and excited about the new job. I learned very quickly what was needed from me, what was expected from me, and I learned to adapt what I had to deliver to what I was prepared to deliver in my studies. And that, from a professional point of view, was a very formative bit, because it is, I think, acquiring the method to problem solving. It's one of the most fundamental part of anyone's profession, and I learned that in my first job in Holland, and kind of kept developing it till now. And I hope I will keep developing my methodology, my way of approaching engineering, design problems, but also, you know, people problems, human problems, relations, and talking to clients and how to approach them and feeling some empathy, and all that. So this is a bit my career path. And after Holland, after 5 years in Amsterdam, I felt the need to go back to where I started to take off for that job. So I wanted to go back to the sea, to sailing. I would do some kite surf in Holland now and then, but I wasn't satisfied and impressed by the cold water and the gray sky. There are great spots for water sports, but not in the surfing vibe that you would expect to match with it. So yeah, I was missing the sea, I was missing sailing, I was missing some warm weather, I was missing the most obvious and basic things you can imagine that a Southern European expat can miss in a Northern European.
Yeah.
And I somehow found myself a job in Mallorca, but I ended up just moving down to Mallorca from Amsterdam, and while working for the Dutch design studio, because it just worked well with some of the projects we had, and I extended my cooperation with them, just working remotely from Mallorca in times where nobody else in the world was probably working remotely. This was 2016, so well ahead of COVID. And yeah, I've been in Mallorca ever since, and then slowly I detached myself to my first employer because I had other projects coming up from other directions, and I decided to take the challenge to take them on and try to approach them and carry on my own. And this is how I founded my design studio, Spinta Studio, here in Mallorca, and this is how I work right now. I work mainly with international clients, boat owners, shipyards, and people that need design and engineering services for yachts, for multi-yachts, but also people that are looking for a more conscious experience at sea, people that look beyond what is the normal boundary, I think, of yachting. And I feel like that is what still attracts me a lot in this job. I think there is a lot to innovate, especially in the relationship between people at sea and their boats. Yeah, this is what inspires me right now still, and more every day.
Okay, let's tap more a little bit into the let's say personal side of things, because if you tell me you're like this path, then it sounds so straightforward and wow, just everything went the way you wanted it to go. But probably there were moments where you doubted yourself or you questioned maybe your direction or something like that. So maybe tell me a little bit about that. How did you personally feel on this journey? Because for me, for myself, if I tell someone the story, it could sound really straightforward. But when I'm looking back at so many moments of doubt, so many moments of, questioning myself, questioning who I am, who I want to be, where do I want to live. And it took, some soul searching in some sense to to get to the point where I'm at right now, and then looking back it makes sense, but at the moment it was sometimes hard. So how was that for you?
Yeah, it was nothing easy to see and nothing obvious and nothing straight line. And I think, as I heard you saying in another of your podcasts, it all makes sense when you look back at it, but not when you look ahead in the future. Everything that you project as the trajectory you foresee for yourself, but then there are key moments and key decisions and turns to take that not always make sense the next morning or the next month. But then eventually they enrich you of not only of the result of that choice, but also of the confidence you put in that choice and in believing in yourself by doing so. And I've been there many occasions in my life. Keep searching for a job with the knowledge I have, or I go back to studying and trying to become more knowledgeable, to then have a wider spectrum, to then maybe have more consciousness in choosing what I really want to do. Should I be with this employer for the rest of my life or not? Is this good enough? Is this the best I can get? Or can I get better? Or what would change if I did this or that? We all face those questions, I think. And we all stay where we are until we have confident answers for it. And as soon as we don't feel like we are answering those internal questions with enough confidence, with enough internal confidence, we start to probably go out and chase different choices and different paths and different future opportunities. From, the big jump is always, for me, when I look back, the big jump is always when you decide to go on your own, to be your own boss, to be entrepreneur of your own career. And when you decide that you're not going to take on the challenges of someone that has put that problem on your desk, when you go out, look for those problems to solve for people and that make them happy and create value, bring value to their project, to their life, to their experiences, whatever they are. In my case, they are the way people leave the water, leave their sailing holidays or their racing experiences. So there is plenty of different ways of using yachts that I get involved with, and so there are also very different. The nature of the problems I get to solve are very different. They go from high performance engineering tasks and scientific analysis to, how big a coffee table should be. So we have a very wide scope of work, and it's one of the biggest stimuli that I have is jumping from one thing to the other, possibly not in the same hour, but sometimes in the same hour as well.
Yeah. What did go through your head when you founded Spinta Studios? What was the thought pattern? Like, there has to be like some ignition point where you're like, yeah, well, I'm sick of what I'm doing right now. I want to change or something like that. How did it happen for you?
Yeah, I wasn't really sick of what I was doing. I was inspired by some of the characters that I met throughout my career, including my, at the time, employer. I have absorbed all that I could from all the people that were designers on their own and that had founded their own studios. I guess I just had this drive to propose and to offer my way of approaching yacht design and my way of approaching problem solving within yacht design. And I was eager to give another service, offer this service to clients. I experienced too many ways a big discrepancy between clients' expectations and the product they actually had delivered or delivered from builders, designers. That inspired me and built in me this drive to associate a strong educational background and engineering skills and, the understanding of the science behind sailing and yachts, and together with the design aspects, the human interaction, the human experience, all this big design and engineering process to bring to life a product that needs to serve a purpose, and then it ends up serving the purpose not for the user, serves the purpose of being easy to design, easy to build, cost effective, but then it lands in front of the final user who's actually the one who's paying for it, and it works better for the yard that has built it than for the actual boat owner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but how do you balance this? Like that seems to be hard, and I guess that's the problem everyone faces in certain industries. You know, you have the thing you really need, and then you need to find the balance between the costs and the design behind it, for example.
Absolutely. I think every industry pretty much has that kind of challenge at the design level, but also at the commercial level. You know, we want to market this product that's going to cost that much plus margin. We can't present this to the public, you know, to the market, for example. But I think, first of all, I don't have an answer, and the answer the answer is what I'm chasing and hope will be chasing for a long time in my career. But so far, the way I try to bridge it is to really listen to both sides of a story, really listen to both sides of the job. And there is someone that needs to bring the product to life. It doesn't really make sense to bring a product to life if in the end is disappointing or not fulfilling its purpose for the final user. So I think there are easier contexts than others. And for example, just to give you a practical example, I think there is a difference between serious production boats and custom designed and built boats. I feel like in the serious production, you obviously try to make a design and engineer a build process that can serve the purpose of dropping costs by creating series that are all the same and standardized processes and production phases. And then you land in a place where boats are all the same because the market drives it towards that canon, but we're not the same. We don't experience the sea and the ocean the same way. We don't all have the same sailing skills. We don't all pay attention to the same things when are on a yacht. So you end up with a standardized product to drop the costs, which is standardizing the design, and there's nothing farther away from prime and optimal than standardized because we we're not all the same, as I said. And so the other spectrum is a custom designed and built boat that is just designed for the purpose to serve that single person or family or type of family or type of moment. You focus a lot more on the moment. You focus a lot more on the scope of life for that particular boat. And you have, from a design side, maybe an easier task because you don't need to include many requirements into one single shape. You can focus more and you can go more deep down into the right direction without having to back up to keep the scope of work broad, the scope of service wide. But then you might end up with crazy shapes or a typical of some luxury product, something extravagant that then presents serious challenges for the builder, something that it's harder to engineer, it's more expensive to engineer. It's definitely unthinkable of building it twice. And then you fall back into something that loses a bit of appeal because yes, it serves the purpose to the very fine detail, to the extreme, precise moment beautifully, but then is the opposite of timeless. It's something that is convicted to be obsolete very quickly. It's something that doesn't serve a general purpose. So there is some beauty lost there as well, in my view. Yeah, so it's all about the balance. It's all about finding smart solutions that can serve the purpose of ideally many, to be and not only the purpose, but also to please the eye of the many. Something that is commonly seen as beautiful, that can stand the test of time, and that can at the same time be reasonable in terms of production process. So it's quite a broad challenge.
That's an interesting question for me. I just thought of what is a beautiful design? I mean, sure, it's not objectively true to everyone, but like you said, you could design something that's like right there on spot at the moment. But then again, there are designs that are just seem kind of timeless. So, like, what's a good design in general?
This is a question that it's hard to answer in short.
It's almost philosophical in some
It
sense.
is, and I very much ask that question to myself often, and I enjoy the philosophical aspect of it. I think good design is what serves the purpose for as many people as possible, looks beautiful for as many people as possible, and stands the test of time in terms of technological content and type of experience that you have. If I have a phone, the basic service it should provide is to be able to make calls. If I have a computer, I should be able to use some programs to do tasks that I cannot do somewhere else. But good design and what is beautiful, I don't think I'm smart enough to answer universally. I can only say that to me, good design is what simplifies the life of the user while being pleasant at the eye and without falling into the obsolete too quickly. Now, what is too quickly depends on what product we're talking about, because the results, if you think about food design, is somehow okay to become obsolete. But if you think about piece of cast iron, it's maybe not that okay, because you're creating something that is eternal by materialistic composition and its own physics. You're putting together particles that that can be together forever. That piece is probably not going to change its status forever. And
Yeah.
therefore I feel like a moral commitment to make it as timeless as its material aspect, like you can't
So if
expect an origami made of paper to be timeless.
mhm.
And in my way, well, it will be. But I expect a piece of a manufactured piece of carbon, or a beam made of steel bent to a very special shape, or a piece of jewelry or a watch to be, ironically, a watch to be timeless.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I kind of associate the purpose, the intrinsic material, and yeah, and the context. And in the end, I think beautiful is not subjective, can be objective. Generally speaking, things that are beautiful are somehow perceived as beautiful by majority of people. And I think
Mhm.
it's not just about the look, and the aspect is also about their how they occupy the room. What is their presence? What is the energy they radiate? How does
Mhm.
these objects make me feel in the space? How do I feel like when I'm standing next to a boat of a specific design? Or how do I feel when I'm standing next to a piece of furniture? It's what they create as emotion, what the energy they radiate in terms of how that energy bounces on our own feelings.
That's interesting because it transcends the just visual part of it. There's more to it, like when you're saying energy. And I
100%.
feel that, like, if I have a really beautiful product that I'm working with, and whatever it is, it's a laptop or whatever it is, it's not just about the looks, it's about what it feels like having this product around, working with it, looking at it, feeling it. It's
100%.
all. So when someone asks you what it means to design a yacht, how do you explain it to them? And what's the essence of it for you?
I take it very philosophically, and I go to what is a yacht for you? What do you want this yacht to do in your life? What experiences you want it to bring it to you? How do you want to be looking in the mirror? Not how do you want to be perceived by the others, but what do you want to feel owning this product or this object, this boat, this whatever. That is the starting point. And background design research is a big, big, big focus, and is what I think drives my passion and lights my fire to your design. I think is very much the semantics. So what is the purpose of what we're doing? And the purpose can be something materialistic or philosophical. And you always find a way to bring to life a design that answer a philosophical question or a very materialistic question. So it's pretty much what they say in books, the difference between art and design, answering a function, not only working on an emotional level, but also working on a functional level. So I think this is embodied in full by the profession of the naval architect, who is an hybrid of the most crazy sort between a designer and an engineer. And I grew up I grew up studying engineering, and all my friends that were studying architecture were strong believers that the two professions were impossible to merge, like oil and water. And I always dreamt about disrupting that vision. And I think I am sort of fighting to disrupt that vision to my own perspective first. Not that I knew I was going to end up here, but I think I am actually working in that middle ground between design, creativity, human studies, and how humans interact with the functions that design need to solve for them, and at the same time how the functions are incorporated into the shapes. What's the relation between form and function? What is the form driving towards? What is the function driving towards? And very often they're conflicted. Think about the biggest challenge in your design is the two big opponents are the interior space towards the exterior design and the performance. It's like in a car, you can't go camping with a convertible, or you might be an exotic character that makes it work, or you can't go truck racing with a camper van, or you might, but there are downsides. Sometimes only downsides. Sometimes there are advantages as well of trying to do something wrong with something different, or wrong, something that is out of the scope of work that product was conceived for. And then you find new bubbles, you find new features in a product, and you find new disadvantages in that product. And that is also a way to look at it from out of the box, and maybe innovate that product.
Yeah.
But in my job every day, I try to be balance a scale between more real estate and more performance. In very, very short and simple terms, this is where we, the two big magnets that are attracting the design from one side and the other, performance and commodities, like being comfortable, not commodities, comfort. Performance and comfort. Let's make the seat wider. Let's make the floor space wider so it's more comfortable to walk around inside this boat. But then the boat needs to be bigger, then it needs to be heavier, then it's going to be needing this much and that much, which means less speed unless we do this. So it's all interconnected into complications, and it's very, very easy to enter a spiral of complication and increasing complexity to stretch the functionality of a product while maintaining some form of appealing aesthetics. And even then, I said beautiful is more objective than subjective in my personal view. And I think in both terms can be identified by how well integrated with the surroundings a boat is. When you see a boat, the background is nature, whatever you do. Okay, maybe if you're in a harbor, it's not that much nature, it's fairly humanized area, but a boat is designed not to be in a harbor. A boat is designed to sail in the nature, to be like a transfer function between what nature throws at you, the waves, the wind, the temperatures, and what you are as a human on that boat. So there are two transfer functions in this process. Transfer functions maybe is an engineering term, but I think it gives the idea of something that takes an input from the sea and brings it on board, and then the boat transfers this input from the sea on the foot of the crew, of the sailors. And then the sailor takes his experience and personality and then drives the boat and transfers his own experience, his own being, into the boat behavior, which firmly depends on how you set the boat, how you set sail, how you decide to sail the boat, what direction you want to go, how is the weather going towards that direction. So there are is the coming together of nature and human, and all mixed together in this pot, and the pot has its own ways of transforming the human input and the nature input, and all together this comes out as your sailing experience. And it is extremely philosophical to solve, I think, this problem.
I noticed.
And I think it's also why sailing in general has had such a strong emotional sense for everyone. Everyone that comes back from a sailing trip for the first time is moved, emotionally moved, in a good way or a bad way. They never go back, or they want to go around the world, or whatever it is. They're moved because it's a very strong and, in a way, crude and bare way to face nature. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's like many other outdoor activities. It's just that the boat is a little bit more visible in the background.
Tell me a little bit about the process. Like, where do you start when designing a new boat? What's the first thing you imagine?
As I said, my starting point is always background research. First, the semantic. What is the purpose of it? What do you want this boat to be and to do in your life? And then, okay, has this been done before? Most likely the answer is yes. There are some more populated briefs than others. So you get a design brief, you interpret it from a philosophical point of view and turn the client's input into the designer input. So what I think it is that we need to deliver, rather than what it is I've been told they want to get delivered, you know? And that involves, I think, experience, talent, knowledge. So kind of not taking for granted what you are hearing, but kind of put your own reading into it, and then move that into a design research and a background design research. So what is out there that is kind of done the same thing before, and how we can improve it if there are many examples, or what if there is something already existing that serves the purpose beautifully, value I can add to this from any perspective. Can it be faster to build, easier to engineer, less expensive to build? Can it be more sustainable in terms of material? Can it be serving the purpose for a longer time? Can it be doing, all sorts of type of improvements? So semantics, design, background design research, and then the first lines of the first look, which also is driven by all the research, because it needs to fit in the context. So aesthetics is also sucking a lot of this content to kind of have some form of guidelines, in my view at least. And then you move on and down the line with with the design spiral, which is basically building like a puzzle, each bit of the design, and then iterating until you achieve harmony, you achieve beauty, you achieve client satisfaction for the purpose of why you're doing it.
What's the most rewarding moment in this process of designing a boat? Is it like seeing it hit the water, or hearing the client's feedback, or something else entirely?
I think the most rewarding moment is when you see that the hard, tough decision that made you nervous is proving successful. This is I think really motivating and inspiring for me. I think there are plenty of those moments in the life of a designer that also takes responsibilities for engineering his own design, which is what I do. You come to a meeting table and 8 people are looking at you asking what is the right thing to do and why. And when you can come up with a healthy and solid path to work out that solution, and you are able to communicate that well, that motivates everyone. And it's really important to, as a designer, I think, motivate the owner to spend the money to do what is being discussed, and the builder to put his passion into building something. So a designer has many roles, not only designing, I think, also motivating the people around the table to keep doing what they're doing and doing it at their best, because it's without the people that make it happen, a design is just a design. It's a fundamental part of the life of a product, the manufacturing and the passion and the love and the level of attention that is given to a product during the production stages is very much part of the success and the result of the product in general.
Yeah, I mean, if if it doesn't see the light of day, then it's just an idea basically, and doesn't go into fruition.
Yeah.
So it needs the people around it to make it happen.
Yeah. That said, I see a lot of um, unbuilt ideas that are better than some that are being built. So, in the end, it's all about having the opportunity and to make a difference and to create something that is a step ahead. And this is a bit my mission, I think, trying to offer something that is a step ahead of what maybe a more experienced designer could do, because there are a lot of constraints and a lot of psychological constraints that don't make a very experienced designer probably look somewhere else from what he has done before. It's easy, especially in this industry. You see a lot some of the more acclaimed design offices being, in my view, trapped. Maybe they're not, but in my view, trapped by their own aesthetics, their own signature marks, and their own canon. And I don't believe in a strong design canon that can last too long, because design is ever evolving, because life is ever evolving. We are ever evolving. So there's nothing more different than design than static, steady, constant, which is different than design consistency. It's different than harmony. It's different from creating something uniform. And it's not like dynamic design and changing patterns doesn't mean creating objects that don't stand well together next to each other. That's not what I mean. It's more about making everything at ease in its own context.
How do you deal with creative blocks or moments when the design, for example, just isn't coming together?
I generally try to stimulate a collective discussion with the parties involved. I bring the unresolved problem back to the table to expose why I believe all the exits are blocked, and I ask for contribution to prove or deny that the exits are blocked, because sometimes you set yourself boundaries that are not as rigid as you imagine. Sometimes you can stretch the design towards a direction that is the one that helps you get out of a problem, like an extra cabin that doesn't fit. Maybe it doesn't fit because it's limited by two spaces that you thought were rigid in their brief, and maybe they're not. Or maybe you rethink those boundary spaces and offer a solution that is appreciated, and that change allows you to unlock the space and make a completely different distribution. Or you come around with an engineering smart idea that you just didn't think of before because no one had that same challenge before. Or you and there, in the engineering side of things, is very important to be very much aware of the innovations, the new products, where the groundbreaking projects are bringing the suppliers towards, new developments, new products, new, there again, a product that has been the same for 10 years, then you all of a sudden see a review, you see that they're changing that particular ball bearing in a block sheave, and you understand that is the opportunity to open up even more evolutions and developments into that particular product, and that can bring benefit to the boat because you need less space to fit it. Okay, so all like that. You build on in innovation, technology advances. You build on collaborative workshops where you reality check your constraints, and in the end, no one has a blank paper in a design process, or if you do, you only have it for a very short amount of time, and it's the beginning, and then that paper gets filled in quickly, and your process, whether it's a spiral, a loop, whether you go back and forth, whether it's a very messy piece of paper, in the end gets filled in, and the white space reduces even more and more and more, and in the end you need to make sure that you haven't eaten up design space. I'm talking philosophical now, not actual space. You haven't filled the design space with too many bits and pieces that don't do enough for it.
Yeah. I want to get back more to a personal life lesson point of view. You have a meaningful connection to the ocean and the sea, and you are living close to the sea, and the sea can be unpredictable and sometimes calming and sometimes inspiring and sometimes all at once. What has the sea taught you about life and work?
Beautiful question. I think he has he has given me a sense of being myself in my own body. Has taught me to be very present to myself in the moment, because it shows you these very far horizons, very endless possibilities of traveling. It shows you challenges to overcome, the weather, lack of skills that you may feel in one context or another. It makes you very grounded. I mean, this is what it did for me. I know that it did the opposite for solo sailors that went lost in the ocean, because that's what they wanted to do. It made me feel grounded. It made me feel like I could be comfortable in my own skin, because I learned to respect what was outside of my skin. I learned to respect the environment, the other people, my boat, the boat I'm on in that very moment. It taught me to live the moment as well, because one day sunshine, the next day is stormy, raining, and both moments can have their own beauty in them. Yeah, so respect for nature, keeping it emotionally simple. So try to surface the very raw way of how you feel and handle it in the most relaxed way and calm way and conscious way. Being conscious about life and what you know, in the end, what you do when you're sailing is you're constantly choosing your direction, you know. There is there's very little you can do with the luxury of choosing the direction if you don't know where to go. So you kind of need to know where you want to go to have the luxury to choose where and how, you know. So it's an internally very growing relationship, the one with the ocean. I think at any level, even if you're one that goes up to the beach and stands staring at the sea for a long time, you know, I think it's still an enriching and emotionally moving experience, as I said before.
Yeah.
And professionally, gave me the mindset of never settle for less, never be happy for anything short than what you aimed for. At the same time, which is a bit conflicting with being, you know, being centered and being humble in a way. But never give anything for granted is what I learned from the ocean professionally. Never assume that you've seen one thing once and that's something you can extrapolate as a general rule, which is a mistake I've seen being committed many times in design. It's a very small observation sample that generalize broad concepts is something that is one of the things that was one of the things that was frustrating me when I wasn't working for myself, was a little bit this, you know, we've done this before, as always worked before, and then you realize that actually that is based on a very small sample of experiences, and you have the duty, I think, as a designer to go out and collect the feedback and collect the outcome of how that design decision is actually working with the reality and working with the final user. So yeah, never give anything for granted, always redo, try to reinvent the wheel to then discover that the wheel is still the best idea ever, you know. Not try to reinvent the wheel to make a design statement to prove that you are making a mark and that you are something, that your name needs to be remembered because you reinvented the wheel. Rather, reinvent the wheel, because then you will not be using the wheel that somebody else invented, but you're using the wheel that you reinvented, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you could go back and give young Vittorio one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't rush to get to where you want to go, and prepare for a long journey. Because if the passion lasts long, and if you manage to evolve with your own passion, like a relationship, like love, you know, we say love needs to change at all times to be able to last. It's kind of the same. I see it as the same. You need to evolve within your passion to achieve new milestones and get inspired, so that the goal is always a bit farther away and your horizon is never getting closer. So yeah, piece of advice would be to try to be a bit more settled and at ease with achieving what your passion drives you towards, and understanding that in the end And, we are the sum of all the experiences we have. And therefore, each one of them is enriching, whether it's apparently negative the next morning or not. It's still gonna get us there. Every example is an example, even a bad example, right? So, kind of that sort of wiseness that you never really have enough of.
Yeah, it's what you make out of these experiences. You can decide to see them as something, as a fail or something bad, but you can also try to grow and learn from it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had this interesting question in mind, and I'm interested to see how you feel about it. It goes deep. So imagine we meet each other again, like we don't see each other for 3 years, and then we meet again. And I'm asking you, Vittorio, how have you been? And you're telling me, wow, this have been the best 3 years of my life. You know, like seriously, the best 3 years of my life. What would have needed to happen in these 3 years for you to tell me that?
I think I don't know, and I'm excited about not knowing. If I were able to give you a solid answer right now, it would mean that I had expectations, which I do. I just don't like to frame them and stare at them every day that much. I kind of like to have them in a drawer and think about it once or twice a year, not more. I know where I'm going, but I don't know at what pace I'm going. Or I do, but I don't know in the end, if there will be an end, where it is, and how I'm going to be looking like at that point. So I don't know, but I can generally tell you that my mission is personally and professionally to be valuing what I do and to be conscious of what I'm doing and avoid at all costs to finish into a reoccurring loop of just processing, brief in, design out, boom, out the door, brief in, design out. It's great to work on many, many projects, and it's what I aim to do, of course, is one of the ambitions. But I also aim to do it in a very conscious way and in a maybe old school way. So taking every moment to share time with the people involved in these processes and learn from their personalities, from their experiences, and try to have a very grounded and very conscious process forward to be able to master this art or this profession. In a happy way, because that is also the base to find personal balance in personal life. I recently became a father, and I realized how much life gives you shifts of priorities and how you revalue and reconsider things that were your absolute certainties and extreme solid boundaries. So that is bound to change for all of us.
Beautiful answer. Thank you already for that. I have one last question for you. The podcast is called Bridging Worlds, and I would love to know what Bridging Worlds means to you in your life or your work.
The title and name of the podcast is one of the things that attracted me to it, because I feel like I am constantly bridging worlds. As I've been saying, bridging worlds of creativity and engineering, function, form, expectations, and production challenges. I'm bridging the world of nature and human towards a medium, which is the boat. So I feel like I am bridging the architecture world universe full of unicorns with the engineering world full of rational gray days and sad truths. So I feel like I'm an hybrid professional. I'm constantly thinking about the color of a throw pillow and how many carbon fiber cloths needs to go in that part, or how curved should be that hull shape, So it's challenging from every angle, and I enjoy all of them, and I feel like I am for that bridging worlds continuously between my two screens. And for me, I think what you are bound to do is interesting, because you're picking probably personalities and people that there are infinite number of ways of bridging worlds in the world, and it's going to be very interesting to see how you go on and unveil all of those that sometimes are in front of our face and we don't pay enough attention to it.
Yeah, I'm excited as well to see where it all goes. And I'm excited again for every conversation I'm able to have. So I'm really grateful also for you being on the show and for us being able to have this great conversation and bridging these worlds in some sense as well. Like I said, if I'm going to be there next time in Palma, I'm going to hit you up. So Vittorio, thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the show. And if people want to stay in touch with what you're doing, want to contact you, whatever it is, where should they go?
Well, the website of Spinta Studio, we have an Instagram page, but yeah, see us on some of the docks at some racing or bus shows or yeah, around Mallorca, looking for inspiration. But thank you, Tim. Thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak out loud about all these thoughts and to share these visions. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening, everyone. If you want to stay up to date with everything that I'm doing, go check out my socials. Also, subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. And if by any chance you're looking to design your next yacht and you need someone to help you do it, then go check out Spinta Studios and Vittorio.